All right, folks. So I thought we'd get right into part 2 of using Gaia GPS for navigating and finding cool places to go out and travel when you're out overlanding or camping. So today we're going to be working specifically with the tablet and navigating Gaia through the tablet. And I'm going to show you how to do some of the things I already showed you in the desktop version, and some of the things that you can't do in the desktop version, or that you should do at least on the tablet, especially if you're going into locations where you know you're not going to have cell phone signal, or you're concerned you won't have cell phone signal. Some of the stuff, if you haven't watched the desktop video, then definitely watch the desktop video first, because there's going to be certain things that I'm not going to talk about in this video, because I'm going to assume that you already know because you watched the desktop video. So let's get into the tablet and start looking at it. So first thing that I want to kind of show you, a couple of quick things, is if you go up in the upper right hand corner of your tablet screen, you'll see 5 icons. There's like one that looks like 3 different pieces of sheet that are over the top of each other. There's a plus sign. There's a little compass looking kind of eye there. You got another icon that looks like 4 arrows pointing out, and then you've got a little search icon. So the first one I want to talk about is the little compass little icon that's between the plus sign and the 4 arrows pointing out. That is your location button. And specifically using a mobile device like this, either a cell phone or a tablet that has a built-in GPS system, when you press that button, it is going to narrow in on where you are at and basically show where you are. If you press the button one more time, what that does is actually activates your direction as upward. When the arrow is in this position here, it's green and it doesn't have any arrows pointing, it's always going to have the map oriented north up. So the arrow will just be going in the direction that you're going, but that may sometimes look like you're going backwards or something like that, because it always has the map oriented up towards the north. So if you don't like that, I don't like that. When I'm driving, I want the arrow to be always facing forward and the map to shift around to kind of show the direction I'm going. And in order to do that, you press the button one more time so that you get like these 2 arrows facing into each other. And then that will do that. So you will actually, that will keep the arrow always facing up, and the map will rotate and shift as you make turns and corners and stuff like that. But it will always show you going kind of forward. So if that doesn't make sense, just go out and kind of play with it. Go drive around in the different modes, and you'll definitely understand what I'm talking about really quickly. But the other thing that I want to show you there across the top there is the 4 arrows pointing out. If you press that, that will take you to a full screen mode. So you can see there that's full screen. Now, to get out of that, over in the top left corner, you can see 4 arrows pointing in, and that brings you right back into the normal mode. The thing I like about the full screen is you can see right now there's a lot of like dead empty space of white, and it doesn't really best utilize the tablet screen. So if I go and press that, then I get a lot better utilization of the full screen, and I can really see. But the thing that I don't like is I no longer can access my location button. You actually have to move and press the button from this screen. You can't get to it from the full screen. And where that becomes a problem is if I've had the navigation button, it's following me, and for whatever reason, I decide to pan around or move around the screen. Now it's no longer got my location button dialed in on myself, and so I have to be able to turn that back on. Anytime you move the screen, it'll quit tracking you. It'll basically quit tracking where you're at, and it will just leave the screen wherever you are. You may drive into the screen or you may drive out of the screen, but it no longer is going to move the screen with your position, if that makes sense. So what you need to do is you're going to have to go from full screen back to regular screen and press the location button again. Whenever the location button is green, it's tracking you. It's going to follow you. It's going to keep you centered in the screen as you move. If I pan around and move, it no longer is going to do that. It's going to just keep that location or that view there. So you can notice that the button up top is now, black again. So if you want it, if you want it following you and keeping you in the center of your map as you move, you need to be in one of these two modes, or else it won't be. This mode here will not track your movement through the map. So like I said, is if you're, my complaint here is if you're in full screen and I move, now I can't quickly just hit that button again and go back. So that's one of my kind of gripes. There. But continuing to move on to some of the things now, like I've talked in a previous post, most mapping softwares give you the ability to set what type of coordinate system you want to use and what datum you want to be using. Now, as I mentioned in the desktop app does not allow you to do that in Gaia, which I am kind of annoyed by, and I talk about that in the desktop video. But the phone app or mobile app does actually allow you to do that. And where you do that is by clicking settings and then going to units. And then in units, you can see you have select coordinate type, which gives you your different options. And you can see I have UTM selected here. And then it also has coordinate datum that you can select. Now, Gaia only gives you two options. They give you WGS84 and NAD27. I'm not sure why they don't give you NAD83 because that would make more sense to me. But in the end, just make sure that if somebody gives you coordinates that you want to go to, that you know what datum they use. Somebody giving you coordinates without a datum is not good, because if they're using NAD83 or NAD27 or WGS84 and you're using something different than whatever they're using, those coordinates are not going to take you to the right place. You have to be using the right datum. It absolutely must. So I always use WGS84 mainly because it's a pretty standard datum. NAD27 is specific to North America, and it actually could be a tiny bit more accurate than WGS84, but for the most part, for overlanding, it's accurate enough. And the main point, like I said, is just make sure that you're using the exact same datum as whoever is giving you the directions. So if they give you, like I said, if they give you a set of coordinates and they're using a different datum, you can actually take those coordinates and that datum and look it up on the web and tell it to convert those coordinates to a different datum or whatever datum you're using. So if you're using WGS84 and you don't want to switch your settings, or you're in a program that you can't switch your settings, and they give you a set of coordinates that is using, like, say, NAD27, you can go online and find converters that will convert it to the different datum. So you would just take those coordinates, convert it over, and then you would take the new coordinates and plug that into your device. But for the most part, that's why I use WGS84, because most software, if their datum is hard-coded in, WGS84 is what it uses. A perfect example of that is Google Earth. So anyways, enough on that, but that's very important. So that's why I really wanted to explain a lot. Very important part that a lot of people don't know about or understand. And like I said, if your datums don't match, you're not going to find each other. So moving on, we're going to go back to the map. So I'm going to click the map button down in the bottom left corner, and we'll go back to the map. So across the top of the screen, you got distance, moving time, and total time. And where that will come into play is when you're making a track. So when you're recording a track using the record button, you will start to see that information. So I've hit the record button. You can see it now. It's starting to track my movements. And this is what I do, like when I explain, like when I make a route. Once I actually start to go drive that route, when I get at the beginning of the route, I hit record and I start driving the route. That way, if I go along the route and at any point I can't go the road that the route tries to take me and I have to find an alternate route, I'm making sure to record all those adjustments and everything. So that way, when I get to the end of my route, I can stop and finalize my route. And now I've got a really accurate track of where I went. And so that way, if I do come back and I'm working on my laptop, I can go and update my route and make sure that it's got the all the appropriate turns that I need. And then plus, if I'm going along that route and I find some other cool things on the ground, like I see a sign that says, hey, hot springs over here, and I decide to go check that out, now I have that track showing me how to get the hot springs, and maybe I can want to add that to my finalized route when I get back. So I always like to track where I'm going. I always like to, make sure that when I start one of my routes, especially in an area that I'm not gone to before and it's a brand new route, I always like to make sure I use the tracking. So right now, like I said, it's tracking. It's telling me how long it's been tracking. It's showing me my distance, my moving time, total time. Then next to that, you can see my coordinates, which again is using UTM, and it's showing my elevation and any ascent that I'm doing. So if I get done and I want to stop tracking, I just hit the time button again, and it comes down with a drop down of a few things that I can do. I can either pause recording. So I'll do that sometimes, pause recording, like if I get to a campsite at night and I don't want to just have my tablet running all night, still trying the track even though I'm not moving, I can tell it to hit pause. And then that way the next morning when I get moving again, I can tell it to resume. So if I hit pause, you can see it says paused. Now I can go ahead and hit resume recording, and it will just start from where I was at the day before. So that's kind of handy, like I said, if you're kind of going along a track and you stop for a day or stop for lunch or whatever, and you just don't want it sitting there tracking for no reason. So when you get done, if you decide that's not a track you want, you can immediately delete the track. But if it is a track you want, you can hit finish track, and that will bring up a box where you can, edit the track a little bit. So one of the things is you can go into edit, and it shows you the track, and you can see my track is like nothing here because we haven't moved, but I can adjust the track length. So you can see here, I can say, well, I don't really want that first part. So you can adjust that track length. So it's basically cropping the track from both ends. So if you have a little bit towards the end, or let's say you got to the end of your track and you forgot to stop and you kept on driving, and then you're like, oh man, I don't want all that extra driving that I put on because, that's not part of the track. I can use this crop feature to crop back a little bit of my track and then resave it so that it doesn't have that in there. Another thing too here is with the track, I can go into it. Sometimes on the tablet, it can be hard. So I can see, okay, there's my new track. I didn't give it a name. So again, it defaults to like new track and then the date and time. So, but if I hit the little info button next to it, it brings up the information. And if I do want to give it a name, I can hit the little pencil in the top right corner, and then that allows me to, change some notes. And I can also now go up here and erase the old name and give it a new name. So now that track has that new name. Or I can export the track out to a GPX file. I can even resume the track. So like, let's say I drove part of a track, part of a route one weekend, and then I stopped the track, went home, whatever. And then I wanted to come back out the next weekend where I left off, and I want to resume that track. I can bring this track back up and hit resume recording. And now I can continue that track so that way I can get the whole track recorded. So that's a great feature. And then another one that I really like, and we're going to talk a little bit more about downloading a little bit later, but another feature I really like is download map along track. And you can also do this in the route section as well. But this allows you to, like, if you're going into an area that you may or may not have cell phone signal, you want to make sure that you have that area downloaded locally to the tablet, so that way it doesn't need internet to show you the maps. So if I don't want to actually have to try to figure out and select that whole area, I can just tell it to hit download map along track, and it will download that area all along that track, so that way I know I have all that area locally downloaded, all those maps locally downloaded to my tablet or the cell phone. Again, doesn't matter. So that way, if I get into some of those areas and they don't have cell phone, I won't lose my map. So super handy feature. Again, that's available in the route section as well. What I'm going to do with this track, because I'm not going to save it, it's nothing, I'm just going to hit delete and go ahead and get rid of it. I want to show you that too, kind of in the route section. So I'm actually going to go into my routes here and see if I got something. So bend to hole in the ground. All right, so this is the track we made on the desktop, right? So this is that track, and if I load down through here, you can see right down here at the bottom, download map along route. So I can tell it to download that map. So it's going to take all my layers I have turned on, and it's going to download those layers along that route for me. And what I will see is it's also asking me, so basically what it did here is it popped up with a screen and it's asking me those layers. It's saying which layers do you want, and what resolution do you want it to be at? Medium, high, low, none. So what I might say is, like, you know what, I really don't need to have the satellite along that route. And I may not need to have WMUs and stuff like that. So along that route, that's probably not important. So I can cut some of that, some of my download down. And then once I decide medium is good, I think that'll be fine. I hit save. And now what I'll see in my notification area, you can see that it's starting to download those maps for me along that track. And so if I bring my notification bar down, I can now click on that, and I can see the progress of the download happening for each one of the maps. So super handy feature, especially when you're going on a route. It's always really good to make sure that you have the route you're going to drive downloaded to your device, so that way, if you lose 4G access, which in many places you will, that you have the maps locally on your device. Now, it only downloads an area on each side of the route, and I don't know for a fact how much that area is. So, like, you're not going to be able to go way off your route and be able to still have maps. But as long, I don't know exactly what the area is, but it's enough to where you can safely be, on your route and stay in there. If you want more area, like let's say you're not happy with that and you want to make sure you have more area, what you can do is go back to your map and go up to the plus sign in the upper right hand corner. So I'm gonna zoom out here a little bit. We're gonna go out into some of my areas here that I like. All right, so here we go. So we got some area. Let's download some area here. So first thing I want to make sure is my WMUs are turned on. And this is a personal thing for me and absolutely does not have to be done to do maps. It's just one of the things with downloading maps is you can only download so much area at a time. You can't download an entire state in one chunk. It's too much information. You have to download like pieces and chunks, and there's a certain amount of space. So what I have done is I've gotten to the point where I use as a filing system, I use the Oregon Wildlife Management Units as my chunks of downloads. So if I'm going to download a part of the state, I do it by wildlife management units. It's just kind of how I keep track of all my different downloaded maps that I have on the tablet. You can come up with your own option. This is just how I do it. Because like I said, the state's already been broken up into chunks with the wildlife management units. It's easy for me to make sure that I have a whole area by just following that. So what I do is I go into the plus sign, and it gives me options for recording a track, adding a waypoint, creating a route, and then, you know, downloading a map, which is what we're going to do now. So I'm going to click download map. Now, one of the things I want you to notice right away here is you can see me moving around this red box, but then you can also see all these other red boxes. All the other red boxes of areas I've already downloaded. This is actually a new feature of Gaia. They just added it not too long ago, and I really like it because it's showing me what I already have on the tablet downloaded. So that's fantastic. But I can see here that I've got areas around the Ochiko unit, but I don't have the Ochiko unit itself downloaded. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move this box over the Ochiko unit, and I'm gonna crop it because I really just wanna make sure that I get just what I need. Just the Ochiko unit. So I'm gonna crop it down to just that unit. And again, I'm using the units because it helps me file it, but you don't have to do that. You can select whatever area you want and use any naming convention that works for you. But I mean, this works for me in Oregon. So now I'm going to decide to save that. So I'm going to hit save. And I also want to point out too, see up at the top here, it's telling me how many tiles it's going to use and how many megabytes that download is going to take. I can tell already because it's red that it's too big of an area to download at maximum zoom 15. I've also found through my own just testing that realistically I can get by with maximum zoom of 13. So I'm going to adjust the slider to 13 right there. So now it's black. I can see that it's going to be fine. I'm not going to get an error. If I would have hit save with it being red, it would have came up with an error and let me know that it was too big of an area for me to download. So now that I'm okay, I'm going to hit save. I'm going to hit download. I'm going to type in the name of the map, Ochiko, and I'm going to hit save. So again, it's just going to add it to my download queue that we looked at earlier. So if I come up here into my things, now you can see I have Ochiko, and it's going to download all of the map layers that I had open at the time. So, so now I have that downloading in the background. So I can go back to the map, and also I can look at, if I also want to see some of the maps that I've already downloaded, I can go to my saved and drop down to my maps, and it will give me the list of maps that I've already downloaded and the map layers. So you might see something, so you can see that I've got all these, and you can also see right here, you can see map to bend a hole in the ground. So there's that route. I've got Ochiko that's start downloading now, and you can see it's grayed out because it doesn't have it all coming in. Sorry, let me ignore this phone call. Okay, so anyways, yeah, so that will show you where all your maps are. Anything you've saved in Gaia will be under your save folder, and you will be able to come up here to the upper right-hand corner, and right now it says maps. That's just because that's where we're on, but if I hit that, it gives me the option to go into all of the other options. And so I can look at tracks, routes, hikes, waypoints, anything I have. And if you watch my last video on the desktop, you know I save a lot of things in folders, so I can go into a folder, and then again we used, as example, we used the Bend the Alvord trip a lot in that, and I can see, okay, there's my route, there's my waypoints, and I can see all the waypoints and routes and everything within that folder. And so that is how I can manage everything that is saved into my device. So downloading, I just want to make sure that that's kind of important, that you guys understand that if you go in, that if you pick out an area you're going to go to, make sure that you open in Gaia in your device while you have good internet connection and download that area, so that way when you get there, you know you're not going to have problems if you run into a situation where you don't have cell phone signal. Okay, so downloading is very important. Okay, so now to do some of the same stuff that we did in the desktop, it's still very easy on, in the app. If I want to create a waypoint, so I'm just going to scroll here. We're just going to go somewhere. we're just gonna go, we're gonna actually use that same, here we go. Here's that same route that we created on the desktop. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna recreate that route and that waypoint via the tablet so that you guys can see how it goes. So what we're gonna do first is I'm gonna click on the waypoint, and I am going to go into the info on that, and I'm just going to delete that waypoint so that you can see how it's done. Again, I click on the route, and I'm going to click on the info button, the little eye there, and it's going to pull up that, if I don't fat finger it, hole in the ground. There we go. All right, and so there's the route, and I'm going to delete that. And okay, so now I've deleted that route, and I've deleted the waypoint. So now I want to get it back. Now I remember looking at the looking at this particular map layer, I didn't actually see that. What I saw that one on was my satellite. So I'm going to turn off my neo land use and that so that I can see where hole in the ground is. Okay, so now I found hole in the ground here, and I'm going to create a waypoint in this location. So what I want to do is go to my add. Now I have two options for waypoint. I can do add waypoint or add waypoint my location. Add waypoint my location is going to create a waypoint right where I'm at. That's not what I want right now because I'm obviously not in hole in the ground. So I'm going to hit add waypoint. And what that's going to do is just going to throw up a waypoint just somewhere on the map in the view that I have at the moment. So what I'm going to do is move that waypoint right into hole in the ground right there. And then I'm going to go up to the top here under name, and I'm going to name it. Okay, and then I'm going to save. So now I've got my waypoint, hole in the ground right there, and that will help me. I don't have to have a waypoint to create a route. It just helps me create the route, especially when I've got a long distance that, that I'm going to be doing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom in here to Bend so I can find Bend, which I know is right around, see there's Ochko, so Bend should be, oops, I'm too far here. Bend right there. Okay, so here's Bend. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back up to the plus sign. I'm going to hit the plus sign, and I'm going to say create route. So what it done is you can see a little edit button and a little dot. So I got to move that dot over to Bend. That's where I want to start from. So now I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to go over to where hole in the ground is. And I know that's this waypoint right here. And I'm just going to use the waypoint and put my finger over it. That is the right waypoint, isn't it? Oh, nope, that's not it. That is not the right waypoint. Hold on. Scrolling out. Here's the right waypoint. So I'm just going to scroll in, verify it is right. That is right. And now I'm just going to hold my finger down, and you can see that it's created the other dot. I'm going to move that dot over the road, nearest road, and you can see it automatically created the route again for me. Again, I'm going to scroll out and show you guys the difference on how it does the route, just like in the other app. You can see if you look in the bottom left corner, it has mode. And if I click on that, it gives me those options of hiking and driving again, and cycling. So if I hit driving, you can see it did the same thing as it did in the desktop version. It's routing me via the road system more than dirt roads. So we'll keep it on hiking, and we'll keep that route. And then all I have to do is hit save, and it's going to create that route for me and give me a way to, obviously give me a way to save it. Okay, so it's come up. I can now put a name in it. And again, I'm going to do the same thing, Bend to hole in the ground. Now it's given me the ability automatically here to download that file again. So I can set the medium, and then I can tell it what maps I want on for this. And so like maybe I don't want it's being a little slow here, probably because of the recording software. Boop. So if I don't want the satellite, then I can say, so now what it's going to do when I hit save, it's not only going to save the route, but it's also going to download the area around that route. So I don't need to do that because, I already told it to do something, so I'm just going to cancel it and not do it. But I just want you guys to see how that would work. I don't actually have to, right at this moment, if I just left it at none, and on the resolution, then it's not going to download anything, and it's just going to allow me to save the route without actually downloading anything to the device. But now you can see our route is back in place that we had in there. And if I decided I did want to download it, I can always just click on it, or click on it and get it to come up with the name. And then where I see the little info I can press that. And it brings back up the information. I can add notes. I can download the map along the route. I can even export the route. I can do a few different things there. We'll just cancel out of that. But so anyways, that's kind of how you do a waypoint. That's how you do a route. That's how you download offline maps to make sure that when you're out, it's also, I've shown you now how to select different map sources. So with that, I think we'll call this video to an end. If there is something more specific that you would like to know about using the app, let me know, and then I can kind of do another video narrowing in on that specifically. But hopefully that kind of answers a lot of your guys' questions on how to use Gaia, specifically on the tablet or smartphone to help you navigate when you're out in the backcountry.